Hi, this is Ellen from the Chili Dog, and I'm making a pair of Birch Grove socks. So today I'd like to teach you how to do the lifted increases that I'm using to shape the toe of the sock at the side of the foot. Lifted increases are fairly inconspicuous. They don't really create any noticeable gaps or holes in your fabric. And lifted increases can slant either slightly towards the right or slightly towards the left, depending on how you work them. And they work really nicely when you're increasing stitches in pairs like I am for the toe of these socks. So here I worked one increased stitch on the top of the foot and then another increased stitch on the bottom of the foot. So lifted increases are made by working an extra stitch into the stitch that's 2 rounds or rows below the round you're knitting. It's not really as complicated as it sounds. Let me show you how it works. Before we start increasing, let's take a close look at our stitches. Let's think of the column of stitches as a family. So let's look at the first column on my right hand needle. This top stitch that I just knit is the child. The stitch directly below the child is the parent, and the stitch directly below the parent is the grandparent. Lifted increases are made into the grandparent round. The grandparent round is 2 stitches below your right needle, but it's only 1 stitch below your left needle because you haven't made the child stitch yet. If you need another way to help you identify which round is the grandparent round, you can look for this top horizontal strand between the stitches on your right and left needle. This top strand is connected to the parent stitches on each side of the needle. So it runs through the grandparent both on the right, and it goes right through the center of the grandparent on the left. On the left-hand side of my sock toe, I'm going to make an LIR, or a lifted increase that slants up and to the right. The first thing I need to do is to identify my grandparent round. And you can see this top horizontal strand runs right through these 2 red stitches on either side. Those are my grandparent stitches. So to make an LIR, or a lifted increase that slants to the right, I'm going to use my right needle tip and I'm going to lift up the right leg of the grandparent that's to the left. And I'm going to lift that stitch up onto my left needle tip. And it sometimes is helpful to just use your fingernail to hold the stitches that are already on your needle because they'll tend to slip together with the lifted stitch. Next, you're going to just knit into that grandparent stitch and drop it off your needle. And now you can see I've increased 1 stitch. There's 2 stitches coming out of that same lower grandparent stitch. So then you can just continue knitting on until you're ready to make your next increase. On the right hand side of my sock toe, I'm going to make an LIL, or a lifted increase that slants up and to the left. And again, the first thing I need to do is to identify my grandparent round. So that green horizontal strand between my needles runs between this pink stitch and this red stitch. So those are the grandparents. Since I'm making a left leaning lifted increase, I'm going to use my left needle tip to pick up the left leg of the grandparent. And then I'm going to knit that stitch through the back loop. And again, if you look closely, you can see there are 2 stitches now coming out of that same grandparent. This green one that's below and the pink one that's up on my needle. So I've increased 1 stitch. And again, now I could just continue knitting on until I'm ready for my next increase. So I've worked across my sock toe to the other side, and I'm ready to make 1 more lifted increase that slants to the right and 1 more that slants to the left. So first the LIR. Identify the grandparent round, and you can see that blue horizontal strand runs through the red stitch that's on the right and the blue stitch that's on the left. Since I'm making an LIR, I'm going to use my right needle tip insert it up through the right leg of the grandparent, up onto my left needle, hold the stitches separate, and then knit into the grandparent, and then knit across to my next increase. So for the LIL, or lifted increase left, again, I need to identify my grandparent rounds. The horizontal strand runs between this blue stitch on the right and the white and blue stitch here on the left. This time, since I'm making an LIL, I'm going to use my left needle tip to lift up the left leg of this grandparent, and then I'm going to knit the stitch through the back loop. And I've increased my stitch, and then I can continue on knitting my sock. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make an LIR and LIL, a lifted increase to the right and a lifted increase to the left. If you'd like to try this type of increase in a pattern, go to the shop section of thechillydog.com and look for my Birch Grove socks pattern. Until next time, happy knitting!